Hello, welcome to Studio 90. And Vince, our only real question on Studio 90, what is the deal with Chelsea, buddy?
You know, I've spent long hours. I lost sleep this week thinking about it, and I just, what?
Do you guys need me yet?
No, Cody.
Just go home, Cody.
Okay.
This is SportsZone.
Hello and welcome to SportsZone. This is another edition of Studio 90. I'm joined by Ryan. And in the past couple weeks, we talked about European soccer and we've talked about men's soccer. But this week, we're going to start off with women's soccer and some big news coming out of there, especially the U.S. camp. Abby Wambach, for all intents and purposes, a U.S. legend, the all-time leading scorer in international soccer, men or women, announced this week that she's formally retiring as a World Cup champion. Did this after they had their victory tour with President Obama visiting the White House. So Ryan, I guess, do you want to just talk about what Abby Wambach's accomplishments have meant personally and kind of what she's done for the sport of women's soccer in general?
I think Abby Wambach's probably one of the premier women's soccer ambassadors of the world. She definitely represents everything that you would want in a soccer player, men or women. She had an illustrious career, definitely one of the you could put her in category with one of the greats of all time. 2 Olympic gold medals, could have had a third, and then finally got the illustrious World Cup win that she needed this year to really just solidify her career. But I think she's a great ambassador for the sport. I think she'll still kind of be around as public figure. She'll probably do something in commentating, probably do something advertising-wise. She's definitely going to be around the sport still to promote the sport because she is and has been for a long time the face of women's soccer.
Yeah, and you think she's been off the field a big presence too. Going into the 2015 World Cup in Canada, she was one of the big ones petitioning against turf fields. She was leading the players in their petition against FIFA. Ultimately, it was not successful, but she kind of took the lanes and took the leadership in there, and so potentially that's something that she could going forward. She's been one of the vocal figures about the disparity in pay for men's and women's, so maybe it'll be interesting to see where Abby Wambach goes from there. Shifting gears over the pond, back to European soccer, and England in particular, we've had a lot of shakeups. It's different than the NFL where you got Black Monday after the season. Really, in European soccer, you could get fired at any point in the season, and some managers really seem in jeopardy. Liverpool fired Brendan Rodgers and brought in Jurgen Klopp. Aston Villa fired their manager, Tim Sherwood, and Ryan, our favorite, Jose Mourinho, under a lot of pressure in Chelsea. He's been given 2 games to rectify the situation, or else he potentially could get the sack as well. So there's a lot of interesting rumors going on about Jose Mourinho and maybe where he could land. Do you want to kind of talk about those a little bit?
Absolutely. Jose Mourinho has been linked with a return to Real Madrid, and the president of the Real Madrid board mentioned that they would welcome Mourinho back with open arms. So that's a possibly interesting move for him to go back to Spain and return to La Liga. Now, I think it's interesting because he has been one of the most dominant Barclays Premier League managers of all time. And, you know, this year, definitely what a difference the year makes. He's went from BPL champion to now possibly losing a job after 2 games. And he's also got the Eva Carneiro sideshow that is now lingering back, as she is going to probably sue the club and sue Mourinho for certain allegations and wrongdoings. So I think that's an interesting perspective. Now I think coming to Europe and to England in particular could be Pep Guardiola from Bayern Munich. He's also been linked with kind of a possible replacement, maybe even for Mourinho, or definitely one of the 2 Manchester teams. So I think there's a lot of interesting paper chases of who's going to pay the most money for these top managers in the world.
Yeah, it definitely really is interesting, especially Real Madrid just brought in Rafa Benitez this year. This is his first year at the club, and potentially they're talking about bringing in Jose Mourinho. Pep Guardiola, also one of these managers who doesn't really like to stick around in one place more than a couple years. He was very successful in Barcelona, then kind of just took a couple years off, went to Bayern and said, even though he's with Bayern and Bayern's doing amazingly, he said, I like a new challenge. So he's going to potentially move on, and the big one you mentioned it possibly is Manchester City and getting rid of Manuel Pellegrini. So I guess we can talk about shifting gears a little bit, sticking with European soccer. It's a big week in European soccer. We've got the Champions League coming up. We talked a little bit about it last week. There's some similar matchups in it this week. We've got PSG against Real Madrid again. That's a very big matchup for the deciding of their 1-2 in the group. And Arsenal and Bayern Munich also playing big matches in their group. So I guess what are your predictions in those two matchups, and what can we potentially see this week?
Well, I'm hoping that Real Madrid PSG is not another snooze fest like it was a couple weeks ago. That was definitely a high-profile matchup that was built up to be a lot more than what it was. Bayern and Arsenal, I think I got to give the edge to Bayern. Bayern normally does not make the same mistake to the same team twice, especially when they've only played them in 2 weeks apart. So I definitely think I got to give the edge to Bayern. And Real Madrid, PSG, it's honestly a toss-up. Both defenses struggled. It's just going to be a matter of whoever. Obviously, it's going to be a 1-0 game.
All right. And so you hear that here. We'll check back in next week. We're out of time for now. More hard-hitting analysis on the soccer front next week. Stick around for more SportsZone.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. This is our premier baseball segment, Getting to Third Base. And guys, the baseball season has officially ended with the World Series officially concluding. The Kansas City Royals beating the New York Mets in 5 games. I'm joined on this panel with 2 Met sympathizers, Aviva and Dan. And let's just jump right into it. I mean, this series overall was fairly well played. If you have to say anything about that, from the Mets obviously bringing their 4 starters who were to be feared, and the Royals bringing just their young, energetic team that obviously had been appearing in their 2nd straight World Series. So Dan, let's start over with you. Let's start actually with last night's game, Game 5, where the Royals officially sealed it up, winning it 7-2 in 12 innings. Matt Harvey against Edison Volquez, who recently obviously lost his father. Harvey is on that rebound season. Biggest takeaway from that?
The biggest takeaway from, it's tough to just take away from one game. My takeaway from the series is that the Royals are, well, first of all, that I didn't do enough research on the Royals. Secondly, the Royals are just annoying. Because here's the thing, and it's interesting that I think it's why the Royals don't get a lot of national coverage. It's because they're not a sexy offensive team. They're not like the Blue Jays where they hit monster home runs. You got all the power hitters there. But what the Royals do is they single you to death.
Yeah.
It's just a single, first and third, a single, first and third, a stolen base, and they just keep running around, and it's very aggravating. And because they are so good at putting the ball in play, you can't cut the rally by striking somebody out. Because even if you get a ground ball, for example, and you get an out at first, the runner still scores, and then you got another guy on third, and it just keeps the line moving, which I know is their rallying cry over there in Kansas City. But yeah, it's just they're just pesky and annoying, and they don't go away.
Yeah, and you were actually at Citi Field for games 3 and 4. What would you say the atmosphere there was like? Obviously the Mets had been in World Series for the first time since 2000, and are on a 29-year drought. Now it's going to be a 30-year drought for a World Series title. Last time the one was '86. Kind of explain that environment right there, the atmosphere.
It was obviously an environment nothing I've ever seen before. Game 3, obviously the game the Mets won. It was so much more, but every time the ball is put in play, there's cheering and even just to have a full Citi Field, which was so rare since it's opened in 2009 because the Mets have been so bad and nobody's wanted to go. But for it to be a full house all the way through to the end of the game. It was loud. It was shaking. It was something completely different than I had ever seen before.
Yeah. Aviva, Game 5, obviously we saw Matt Harvey, like I said, going out there and pitching his heart out. Same with Edison Volquez. Harvey was, flawless, more or less through 8 innings, and then demanded to come out in the 9th. We actually all saw that he was arguing, with Terry Collins, let me go in. I'm not coming out. However, that didn't go as planned. Did you see shades of Grady Little and Pedro Martinez and that same scenario right there? And how would you have gone about that?
I think early in the season, Matt Harvey, the Mets were playing the Yankees, and everything was about the innings limit and all of that. And then they took him out, I think, in the 6th or 7th inning, and he didn't fight for pitching more. And you saw. He fought for pitching. He knew he could finish it. He pitched a great game going into the 9th. He wanted to finish it. He wanted to finish it at home and get this back to Kansas City. In the 9th, he didn't make such good pitches, but he wanted to finish the game, and I'm proud of him that he fought for finishing it.
Yeah, it kind of looked like in the ninth he wanted to make that statement. Obviously, he ran out to the mound, garnered a whole bunch of cheers, and then just watching all his pitches, he was just trying to sling it right through the strike zone. It looked like he lost those mechanics. He just wanted to get it done and kind of get that hurrah moment. He would have been the second pitcher since. He would have been the first pitcher since 1993 with Kurt Schilling to throw a shutout in an elimination game. But going off of that too, I mean, you see the Mets came in with their potent rotation. Of course, the only pitcher to win was Noah Syndergaard. Really well played games though on all fronts. No starting pitcher really faltered. But it seemed to be the back end of the bullpen. Jeurys Familia blew 3 saves this World Series. After coming in this season, he wasn't supposed to be the closer, and he performed admirably. Really. Do you think the Mets need to make some sort of adjustment there? Whether it's not relying on their starters to go for such a long period of time, utilizing more of their bullpen. Because obviously, yes, Tyler Clippard had a rough time, but it's still Tyler Clippard, one of the top relievers in the game the past few years. How would you have worked out that whole pitching scheme?
I think the bullpen Familia did really well in the regular season. I think it was the inexperience of them in the World Series. I think that's really the only excuse there is, because they did so well in the regular season that the Kansas City bullpen was much, much better than the Mets bullpen, and you can't really compare them. So I think it was the inexperience in the Kansas City's bullpen.
Dan, Royals just ended a 30-year drought with a World Series title. Last time they won was 85 against the Cardinals. Obviously, we know the Mets won in 86 against the Red Sox. So, who knows? Maybe their 30-year drought will be over next year. I don't want to see it, but whatever. But yeah, this team, I mean, you mentioned they single you to death, They just keep running the bases. You have all these weapons from Gerard Dyson to Eric Hosmer, who's not really a huge power first baseman, but he's phenomenal in terms of getting, coming through in the clutch. What's this mean for that franchise? Obviously, Salvador Perez winning the MVP going forward.
Well, obviously, we talked a little about the experience and how it probably helped them this year. And they're still a young team. I mean, there's really no reason to believe that this is the end of anything for Kansas City. Obviously, they came in and really ran the American League all season, even if it was very under the radar because, as I said, they're not a sexy team. They're not a flashy team. But you look at the players on this roster: Lorenzo Cain, Hosmer, Moustakas, even the pitchers in that bullpen. They're a young team, and Salvador Perez. They're all probably going to stick around. There's no reason to think that they won't be a perennial powerhouse in the American League.
Yeah, and they're doing it with, like you said, young team, and also resurrecting older guys to kind of fit in those pieces to the puzzle. I mean, Chris Young and Ryan Madsen are 2 names that stick out. But yeah, anyway, that was just overall it was a great World Series. 5 games, I called it. Remember that? I did call that. Oof, and I'll say the Royals in 5. But unfortunately, the baseball season is over. The 2015 season has come to a close, but we still have awards to look forward to, which we will elaborate more in the next week's episode. But that's all the time we have for Getting to Third. Stay tuned for more Sports Zone coming at you next.
Hi everybody, I'm Rachel here with Ryan, and we're here to give you your weekly Ice Time. We're going to start off with the 3 stars of the week, headlining Brad Marchand from Boston, Jake Allen from St. Louis Blues, and Taylor Hall of the Edmonton Oilers. Brad Marchand making a great leader of the Wolfpack here on the Bruins streak. He has scored 6 points this week and tallied up 2 assists.
Yeah, Marchand's had a very big week. The Bruins definitely need him and that top line to really get going with him, Bergeron, and Eriksson. And he definitely really showed that this week they can get going when they move the puck well.
Yes, a lot of Boston fans are mourning the Merlot line over the past few years, but this gold line with him, Bergeron, and Eriksson really seem to be bringing it up to speed. Also, 3 stars of the month, we have Jamie Benn of Dallas, Carey Price, and David Krejci.
Yeah, Jamie Benn definitely has had a monster start with a very exciting new-look Dallas team. Carey Price, obviously one of the best goaltenders in the league. That's no surprises there. David Krejci has kind of become one of the more backbone players for Boston. He's always kind of been there. definitely anchors that second line pretty well. So I think the 3 stars of the month are definitely worthy of their title.
Yes, last season the Bruins were looking at trading David Krejci, but that's when they decided to trade Danny Paille, and I think David Krejci has definitely made his moves. Now, Carey Price, we have to remember, is now out for 1 week with a lower body injury, and we really have to see how the Canadians will shape up without Carey.
Well, I think you're going to have to look forward to Mike Condon, who is the Princeton alum, and he's had a monster rookie season so far. He's leading goaltenders in all goaltender categories, including wins, goals against average, and save percentage. It's definitely an interesting perspective. You don't see that many Princeton University alum, but I think Condon's definitely a good guy for the job to replace Carey Price for the week.
And with more rookies coming up, Connor McDavid was named NHL Rookie for the month of October. A little bit of a controversy. Jack Eichel originally came out stronger than him, scored his points, but I think Connor McDavid really proved his place in the league.
Well, yeah, definitely. Connor McDavid's leading rookies in points and goals, so I definitely think McDavid was worth of the award. But like you said, he did start slow. He's really kind of only just been picking up now. So I definitely think maybe you should have went to Eichel, but McDavid's obviously worth the award as well.
This week to hit your player safety counts. A little less than last week. We had a lot of suspensions going on. But this week we'd like to focus on Mark Stone of Ottawa, suspended 2 games for his illegal head check on Landon Ferraro of Detroit.
It was a pretty nasty hit if you actually look at it. Mark Stone coming in and back on the forecheck. Landon Ferraro got rid of the puck, cleared the puck out of the zone, and Mark Stone made contact with his shoulder to Landon Ferraro's head. There was a call on the ice made, but the Department of Player Safety felt that there should be a 2-game suspension without pay included with the Stone hit.
Yeah, the significant jumping brought his shoulder to the head, and it was definitely past the time where he had the puck. Now on to bigger things in the hockey world. Mike Babcock to face Tortorella, as Tortorella is Team USA in the World Cup. Mike Babcock will host coach Team Canada.
Yeah, definitely. Mike Babcock's kind of been the coach of Team Canada for all of Team Canada events, the World Championship, the Olympics, the last 2 Olympics, I think maybe even the last 3 Olympics. He's a legend. He knows what kind of team he's going to deal with, and once again, Canada's going to be a very competitive force in the World Cup.
Right. For the rest of the people who won't be making these 2 superstar teams, we've got Todd McClellan to coach Team North America.
I think that'll be exciting. He already has Connor McDavid on his roster, and he's probably going to have Connor McDavid on his roster again for Team North America, and he's going to have him with Jack Eichel and Max Domi, Anthony Duclair. I think Team North America is going to be very, very interesting, and Todd McClellan's going to have a lot of young talent to work with.
Right. Some games to look forward to the week. I personally would like to see my viewers watch the Kings at Blues on November 3rd, tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. on NBCSN. Both of them have a pretty good record right now, and I definitely think the players could be hitting heads pretty hard. Columbus Blue Jackets also at the Kings, November 5th, 10:30 p.m. at the Staples Center. I think the Kings are really starting to shape up, not taking quite as a powerful role as the Bruins are, but I think they're starting to get their senses together.
Yeah, definitely. Lucic is definitely making a big impact. They finally put him on a line with Jeff Carter and Tyler Toffoli, and he's really starting to click with that line. A couple games for me this week. I have a lot of Boston and Washington games. First, New York Rangers are going to face the Washington Capitals in a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference semifinal. It'll be interesting to see how the new look Capitals play against the kind of lame duck Eastern Conference foe right now, the New York Rangers. And then later on in the week, you have the Bruins coming down to the Verizon Center to play the Washington Capitals. Once again, that'll be a very physical matchup. There will probably be a couple fights, which is anticipated, but I think that's going to set a very physical tone. And then this weekend, you have the storied rivalry of the Boston Bruins and the Montreal Canadiens with Mike Condon in net. So I think that'll be a very interesting perspective to see how that actually turns out for Mike Condon in his first big rivalry game at the Bell Center.
It'll be very exciting for those of you who are also looking forward to the Winter Classic this year, January 1st. This will be at Gillette, Bruins versus Canadiens, of course. So a nice way to preview this rivalry. Also, with all these Capitals highlights this week, I'm really hoping TJ Oshie keeps this point streak going, makes some moves, and that OV kind of starts showing him who's boss. They're kind of lacking.
Yeah, they're definitely not putting out as much as they should. Granted, they're very deep for the Capitals, so they have plenty of guys to supplement that. Evgeny Kuznetsov is having a monster month right now to start the season. But I definitely think Oshie and Ovechkin, who are their 2 big money players, only with Backstrom probably being their 3rd big money player, they really need to step it up. You guys they're getting paid a lot of money. They need to earn their money now.
Right. That's all we have this week. Looking forward to more Thanksgiving showdowns coming your way. We'll see you next week.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. This is our premier NBA segment, the first one of the year because we have just wrapped up what's been a little over a week of basketball to bring you. So I'm joined here by Hannah and Ryan, and we will bring you basically what we've observed so far entering this 2015-2016 season. I guess we could start off, with the defending NBA champions, the Golden State Warriors, led by Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And Ryan, throw it over to you. Just one question right here. Is this Steph Curry's league?
I think it's Golden State's league, especially, obviously, Steph Curry is the man that makes the Golden State offense tick. But definitely can't take anything away from Klay Thompson and can't take anything away from coaching. Steve Kerr turned this team around overnight. They went from pretty much worst to first in the matter of a year. So I definitely think it's definitely Golden State's title again to lose. However, it is a very competitive Western Conference.
Yeah.
You can never count the San Antonio Spurs out. The Los Angeles Clippers, as talented as they are, you can never count them out. The Houston Rockets, you can never count out. So I think it's going to be a very competitive Western Conference, as it normally is, but I still think it's Golden State's league to lose.
Definitely always a more competitive conference in the West. One team that you left out was OKC. The Oklahoma City Thunder have actually welcomed back Kevin Durant from an injury last year. He really did not play much at all. I think only a handful of games, if even. And so Hannah, we see obviously Durant and Westbrook have both come back. They're both a two-headed monster here, putting up ridiculous numbers. And so do you see a chemistry still between them, or will they be kind of butting heads as the season goes along, with Durant wanting to reestablish his role as the number one guy on that team?
I think that Durant, as a seasoned player and as someone who has won the MVP title, who's won championships, he knows what he's doing within the NBA. He's someone that's gonna go for more of a teammate perspective, not trying to outwin Russell Westbrook, but work together with him because they are a dynamic duo of unstoppable length.
Yeah, you mentioned that he's seasoned, not that seasoned, he's not that old. Actually, some news that came out today was that during a 4-game stretch, the Thunder plan to at least use Durant in a reduced role, and he's openly critical of it, obviously, as many athletes are, saying that I am not 39 years old, and I mean, he's not, obviously.
He's only 27.
Exactly, he's only coming back from an injury. It's exciting to see what he can do with this team, considering he may very well be part of the Washington Wizards in a year. Continuing on with now the Eastern Conference. Like we said, slightly weaker than the West. You have the beast in the East, the Cleveland Cavaliers, led by LeBron James. Unfortunately came up short in their title run against the Golden State Warriors last year. LeBron has now been to, I believe, 5 consecutive finals appearances. Ryan, is this, we say it every year, but is this the year that LeBron finally gets that ring with Cleveland?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. I still think they have to go through this pretty much the same Golden State team. And as good as LeBron is, he has proven that he seemed to need the big three in order to win the title. He can't win it by himself. As great as a player as he is, and he's probably going to go down as one of the best of all time, I still think that you're going to need a team around you, and a team wins championships, not an individual.
Yeah, and you mentioned the big three. Obviously, seeing what he did in Miami, the 4 appearances, 2 championships back-to-back. The other big 2, though, out of that big 3 are still down in Miami, Hannah, and they're still playing well enough. A lot of people think that they could still be that team to challenge the Cavs for that spot. Do you find any sort of contradictory evidence towards that? Do you think that, obviously Wade and Bosh are aging? The team is still kind of in a mini rebuild. Eric Spoelstra, in my opinion, still is not a great coach. He was only given the players. He really hasn't done much. Are the Heat that team to rival the Cavs, or do you see another X-Factor kind of team coming out there?
In my opinion, I see the Cavs rivaling over the Heat right now. I don't see the Heat, making it as far as they have in the past, and I don't see them having the success they've had in the past. Wade and Bosh are great players, do not get me wrong, but I think the Cavs have the upper hand this season. I agree with Ryan, I don't think this is their season necessarily, but going against the Heat, I think the Cavs outwin.
And we have 2 young teams as well in the East that are still trying to make pushes. We saw the Washington Wizards last year make the playoffs. Obviously, they were eliminated fairly easily. As well as the I believe that they're coming out of the rebuild. The Orlando Magic, led by Victor Oladipo. Different things going on here. They recently actually lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder in double overtime, 139 to 136. So the fact that they were able to keep that game going really does tell something there. Real quick before we go, though, we still have to touch upon the three worst teams in basketball, the New York Knicks, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Los Angeles Lakers with an aging Kobe, but now a young start with D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle finally playing his first season. Starting down from Ryan coming in, what do you see as the biggest X factor for these three teams moving forward, and where do you see them kind of finishing? Do you think they'll make some steps?
Well, the New York Knicks are still going to probably be towards the bottom. They had a lot of options at the 5th overall draft pick, and they picked Kristaps Porzingis, which I'm still not sold on. As great of summer league ball he's had, yeah, Greg Oden had great summer league ball. Where is he now? Philadelphia 76ers probably also going to stay along the bottom with the New York Knicks. It's going to be probably between the two of the teams. It's going to be a competition for lottery balls, probably with Philadelphia a little bit worse, just in the fact that the the New York Knicks are, they're playing a little bit better team ball.
I'll take it. I'll take Philadelphia.
And then I think you got to go with the Los Angeles Lakers, definitely making a little bit more strides. However, they're in the Western Conference, and they're playing in a dominant Western Conference this year especially. So, granted, Kobe Bryant saying he's going to share the ball a little more, I'll believe that when I see that. He's a guy who has been on record saying, pass, just get the rebound. But yes, with D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle, they're starting to turn around, and I think they will eventually be a dominant force again in the West. So I see them making a little bit more of a stride, but I still see them kind of being bottom third of the league.
And Hannah, they think that, a lot of people think that two of the rookies on two of those teams will compete with each other for the Rookie of the Year. D'Angelo Russell with the Lakers or Jahlil Okafor with the Sixers, both guys taking second and third respectively. That battle, who do you think could come out on top?
That's a tough one. In my opinion, Lakers, just because I think that with Kobe kind of being, I want to say, a step back from where he has been in the past right now, he's coming out cold this season. There's more room for rookies to step in and kind of take over.
All right, yeah. I mean, he's definitely leading that mentorship program right there as well as he can. He is Kobe Bryant. But anyway, that will do it for the first ever NBA segment of the year. Stay tuned for more Sports Zone coming at you next.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. I'm Dan, I have Hannah, and that means it's time for another segment of AU Insiders. So we've got a lot going on and some big news coming out of AU Athletics this week, as it's now officially confirmed all 4 fall AU teams will be headed to their respective conference tournaments. That's AU Women's Volleyball, Field Hockey, Women's Soccer, and Men's Soccer. So it's a pretty successful fall season for that, and a lot to look forward to. We'll start with the game that is the closest, the tournament game that is the closest, both in terms of when it's coming up as well as the location of it, potentially. The AU Women's Soccer team will begin their tournament run tomorrow. That is Tuesday, November 3rd. They will head up 45 minutes up the road to Annapolis to take on Navy, and that'll be a quarterfinal matchup in the Patriot League tournament. So Hannah, they've played Navy already here at home. Did fall 2-0, but it was 2 early goals that Navy got, and AU able to hold them off the rest of the way. What do you think is going to be key for them? They put together a nice, decent stretch here at the end of the season. First tournament appearance in a few years. What's going to be key for them if they want to pull off an upset here?
I think just forgetting really the past. They fell to Navy 2-0, like you said. They were early goals by Navy, and then they were able to hold them off. So just to keep the confidence up and try to start off with a goal, because if you get that first goal in, that's going to boost your confidence. That's going to help you play the rest of the game the way that AU knows how to play soccer. Now, 2 seasons ago was when they went to the Patriot League tournament, and they fell to Navy in the semifinals, and that was a 2-0 game as well. So they want revenge right now.
Well, revenge sometimes is the best motivator. As you said, they did play Navy the last time they were in the tournament. They actually won their first game that year. I believe it was Army. They took
Army
down. It was the 2 military academies. Also, an additional AU women's soccer shout-out, Kelly Donovan named the Patriot League Offensive Player of the Week. So congratulations to her. She's been hugely instrumental in AU making the tournament. I think she's got at least 2, if not 3, game-winning goals to her credit already this season, and she's a big part of the Eagles' success on that side.
She's definitely MVP right now for the Eagles, and she has the power to really lead the team here and make sure that they get off to a good start in the tournament.
Absolutely. Certainly a dynamic player, and the Eagles look to feed her the ball a bit more as a senior leader of a pretty young team.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit, we'll head over to the men's side. That season not officially over, but they have clinched a spot in the tournament nonetheless. Knocked off Holy Cross this past weekend up in Worcester, Massachusetts. Dale Ludwig puts in another overtime game winner. He's got a penchant for those game winners as well. As they, I believe, are currently now sitting. It was third last I saw the standings, but it's a close race, especially for that number 2 spot. As the Eagles look to put themselves in a position to potentially host a tournament game. They've got, I think, one more game of their season left. That'll be this weekend, November 7th, before the tournament officially begins. So they have 12 wins on the season overall, and they got off to a really slow start in Patriot League play. But now they've kind of turned it up a notch.
Yeah.
You know, how much do you think that helps them heading into the tournament?
I think that's really huge for them. I mean, they've shown that they can build from the ground up, and that's really impressive for a team, especially entering a tournament right now. They're on top of their game, and they're playing the best soccer that AU men's soccer can play at the moment. So they have that one game left. If they win on this weekend, they have the potential to get a bye spot if Boston University or Colgate loses this week. So they could move right to the semifinals of the Patriot League. Which
would be certainly an added benefit as well, just in terms of rest and getting healthy. Liam Robley's a bit banged up with a foot-ankle injury, so that does always help as well. Really quickly, moving on, field hockey, their regular season's over. Tournament will begin, I believe, also this weekend. They're heading up to Boston as BU took the number 1 spot, and they'll host the whole tournament. AU will play Lafayette, a team that they've already played and I believe already beaten this year. Their only conference loss coming against Boston. What do you think their chances are of making a finals run there?
Well, I think BU is the biggest threat for them right now. You know, Boston University field hockey is gigantic right now, and they're very impressive. They're a lethal team, and for AU field hockey to beat a team like that, it's going to take a lot of teamwork, communication, everything they can, good offense, good defense, just working together and utilizing their best players with their best skill.
AU has beaten ranked teams already this season, so it's not out of the question they could knock off BU and book a trip to the NCAA tournament. And finally, speaking of the NCAA tournament, the team that seems to go every year, AU women's volleyball. Really, I think 3 weeks until their tournament starts, but looking really good that AU will be hosting once again. They've beaten Army, who's in second place, twice now. So like I said, their odds look pretty good. They're 13-0.
13-0. That just says it. You don't need to say anything else. They're 13-0. That's
So I don't want to jinx anything, but you know they're always a strong group there with Barry Goldberg. So all their matches are home matches, I believe, the rest of the season as well. Head on out to Bender Arena. Check them out. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Very good. So it'll be interesting to see, should they proceed to the NCAA tournament, who they will play. We're getting yelled at because we ran over time a little bit. So that has to be all the time we have for AU Insiders. Be sure to check back next week. We'll update you on all the Patriot League tournament action.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. This is our premier college football segment. I'm joined alongside with Dan Legnato, and we're going to talk some of your pretty interesting stories in college football this week. Unfortunately, no big news changing in the rankings, so we can't really waste time spending time on that. Ohio State through Alabama remains 1 through 7. Notre Dame jumping to 8 because Stanford barely edged Washington State, even though Notre Dame barely edged Temple. The rankings stayed pretty set. Dan, do you have any big matchups that could have possibly affected anything?
Well, you talked about Stanford and Notre Dame basically swapping spots. You talked about Stanford barely edging out Washington State. Temple, drops a little bit with that loss to Notre Dame. They do remain in the top 25. Notre Dame, as you said, Notre Dame probably, as a bigger school, better football school, probably could have won that one by a bit more than 4. So it's interesting that they were kind of rewarded for that. But I guess if you look at it, Temple a better opponent than Washington State. So you give Notre Dame the edge. They're over Stanford, and that's just a bit of a flip-flop on that side. The other really only flip-flop is Memphis and Michigan swapping at 15 and 16 as the Khakis and Michigan going down to the wire with
They're
Minnesota.
dropping. They're dropping.
They went down to the wire with Minnesota, just a 3-point win there. And as our previous host, Ben Florence, would say last year, it's Minnesota. It's still Minnesota.
If TCU's claim to fame is that they beat Minnesota,
Yeah.
like, it's the Big Ten. Like, come on now.
Minnesota's been good this year. They just crushed Iowa, but it's also, as Silas said correctly, they are Minnesota.
So Michigan, 29-26, probably should have won that one a bit easier. Maybe a bit of nerves there in Ann Arbor for a bit, but they did pull it out in the end.
Well, now, also sticking to the top 25, I would feel just horrible as a host if we did not talk about what happened in ACC football this week. Miami and Duke, and what happened to be possibly the most bizarre play that you will ever see in college football. In 8 lateral play, resulting in a touchdown, allowing the University of Miami to upset the number 22 Duke Blue Devils, knocking Duke out of the top 25. Dan, can you just take me through what happened on that play?
It was shades of Cal Stanford from back in the day, though without the marching band on the field. It was a wild ending to that game. I actually think Duke had scored to take the lead with about 6 seconds left. So it was do or die for Miami, who's been really not spectacular this year. They came off a stomping at the hands of, was it Clemson, I believe, last week.
It was Clemson.
So Miami's been really nothing super special of late. But yeah, 8 laterals, you kind of hit the nail on the head. There was a Music City Miracle kind of lateral all the way across the field. Borderline legality, probably, considering the ACC has suspended the officiating crew who worked that game for 2 weeks, saying that probably something should have been called there and something should have been called back. But it is just absolutely bonkers, just a play like that. It's one of those things that every team tries and nobody ever actually pulls off successfully, except in the one case where it actually happens, it is really, really entertaining and really fun to watch.
Yeah, I definitely have to say that was one of the more entertaining plays in college football this week, bar none, considering that it was a relatively boring week in college football. The other big matchup, Pennsylvania football, as great as we talked about it being last week, Pitt, unfortunately, breaking the hearts of Pennsylvania football fans, losing to UNC, knocking Pitt out of the rankings and moving UNC up to a whopping 21st. So can you just kind of take me through how this really now affects UNC, since they kind of came out of nowhere?
Yeah, UNC, not generally a school you think about in terms of a great football school, but as you said, now all the way up to number 21 in the rankings this week. Were previously unranked. They've jumped over some good teams as well. They jumped Temple. They jumped UCLA. So it's interesting to watch. Their schedule but it's interesting to see how they fare down the stretch. This is just one game against one team. Obviously, that's why you play the game. Anything can happen. I'd be interested to see if they can maintain this level of play. As I said, certainly not your top flight football school in UNC, but if they can keep that level of play up, there's a chance they can start creeping their way up those rankings. But that all still kind of remains to be seen.
Well, they're going to have their big matchup against Duke for the bell to see who gets to spray paint it this year. Last year it was UNC, but it'll be interesting to see how that matchup goes. Definitely Pennsylvania football. We're going to stick to it. We're going to now come to the center of the state, making Deepak proud. The Penn State Nittany Lions, 39-0 over the Illinois Fighting Illini. Christian Hackenberg and Coach Franklin really starting to kind of catch their stride in Penn State.
Yeah, if we remember back to the beginning of this season, there's people out there saying, Christian Hackenberg could be, a number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. And it was a bit of a slow start for Penn State. They really kind of picked up steam, especially as of late. I know we talked about it last week, but this is a big win for them, and it talks about, especially, you talk about Hackenberg and their offense, but pitching a shutout against Illinois, I think that's a lot of credit goes to the Penn State defense as well. Keeping a team off the board is always a tough task. So credit to the Nittany Lions, and we are always Penn State.
And now definitely, Week 10 coming up this week, it's starting to be that time to look towards bowl season. Obviously, you have Ohio State clearly staying atop the rankings, and with their remaining 2 games, not looking like there's going to be much fluctuation there. But it's college football playoff time. The big story is going to be who gets into that 4 spot. Is it going to be LSU, TCU, Michigan State, or somehow, some way, because, the college football playoff system, just loves to give Alabama that extra boost when it comes to bowl season time. Who do you think is going to kind of round out 2 through 4, assuming that Ohio State, maintains that number 1 spot?
Yeah, Ohio State probably will be fine, despite the absence of JT Barrett. He'll be suspended, I believe, just for their next game. There was an OVI, which is operating vehicle while intoxicated. Apparently, he's different from a DUI. I'm not exactly sure how.
He was only cited for it, and he was not arrested. That's their big difference.
So there's a 1-week suspension there, but Cardale Jones more than capable of picking the load up there. You always have the Baylor TCU battle back and forth there. I believe that was the debate last year as well.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting to watch. Clemson sitting at number 3 and LSU currently at number 4. I think you talked about it last year. Leonard Fournette is really doing a great job leading those LSU Tigers as a Heisman candidate, probably the front runner. So if he can maintain that, I think they've got a real shot. Bama at number 7. You can never count out Nick Saban in Alabama. If LSU or Clemson starts to falter, there's certainly a chance. It might be a bit of heavy lifting. They would have to jump Michigan State, who's had a pretty good year as well, though they've had some games that could go either way. I believe they've lost already as well this year. But he said the BCS love to bump Bama up there, so you can never actually count them out. But yeah, obviously Ohio State is in. I think Baylor, TCU, those guys are going to go back and forth between the top 4 depending on who ends up winning that conference.
Yes, and I think at the end of the year you have Baylor playing TCU, and that will probably determine who the winner of the Big 12 is. But that's all the time we have here for our college football segment. Along with Dan, I'm Ryan. More SportsZone coming to you after this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to SportsZone. Today we're going to be talking about Week 8 in the NFL, which will be wrapped up tonight when the Panthers play the Colts. So, quick rundown from Week 8 so far. In the AFC, some big games that happened. The Patriots beat the Dolphins 6-7. Broncos beat the Packers 29-10. The Bengals beat the Steelers 16-10. The Raiders beat the Jets 34-20. The Ravens came out with a win against the Chargers 29-26 with a huge injury to Steve Smith, which is probably going to be the last snap of his career. For the wild card, this was a great week for teams moving forward. There are a lot of big games and a lot of big games coming up, and this was a huge week. Big week, Week 8, middle of the season. So right now the Jets are sitting at 4-3. The Raiders are also sitting at 4-3. The Steelers are sitting at 4-4, and the Dolphins are sitting at 3-4, along with the Bills. Right now, out of the teams that are playing for a big playoff spot, this wild card spot, out of these teams, which teams do you, Vince, think have the best shot to go into the playoffs right now?
I would say Oakland is playing really good football right now, and they picked up a big win against the Jets, and they have a chance to, create a little separation next week when they play the Steelers. The Steelers probably be limping in, holding their tail between their legs. They lost Le'Veon Bell for the season, so I see the Steelers really falling off the pace and not being a contender going forward, and the Raiders potentially solidifying that 5 spot. Then I would see it between the Jets and the Bills, divisional rivals, the games they play later on in the season, potentially determining who gets the 6th spot in the playoffs.
That is true. The Raiders played a great game against a good defense in the Jets, and the Steelers lost one of the best talents in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball. Deepak, out of the AFC, who do you think is going to make the playoffs?
I actually am going to say that I still think it could be the Steelers for the 5th spot. Yes, they did lose Le'Veon Bell, but they did bring back Ben Roethlisberger. They still have a passing game there. The defense is still playing, as we'd expect, with a young defense coming up and solidifying its role. Pittsburgh has been known for years for obviously having a strong defense, and now it's just the beginning of a new era. I think D'Angelo Williams will be a solid, just fill in as the new starter. He's had a long career as it is, so he's someone who most teams know what he's about and know that he will grind for every yard that he needs for the team to win. Overall, the Steelers will still hold that position. As for the 6th spot, I still feel like the Jets have that chance. The Jets have played solid all year. Yeah, they just came off a loss against Oakland, who's been playing spectacular recently, but that's the key word there. It's recently. I mean, anything in the NFL can happen with teams going on hot streaks and cold streaks. You look at the NFC East with the Cowboys, they went 2-0 to start off the season. Now they've lost, 5 in a row?
5 in a row without Tony Romo.
So it's stuff like that where you never can tell how a streak will end. I think that the Jets have played solid enough all throughout the season to maintain that 6th spot.
Well, great point, guys. It's good. It's going to be interesting watching what happens in the AFC coming up here, because there's a lot of good teams, medium of the pack teams that are going to be fighting for these spots coming up in the next 5 weeks. So in the NFC, the big games that happened are the Cardinals. They beat the Browns. The Lions actually got stomped by the Chiefs. That's probably going to be the end of their season. The Seahawks beat the Cowboys by 1 point, 13-12. The Vikings ended up getting a win against the Bears, 23-20. The Rams beat the 49ers, 27-6. The Buccaneers beat the Falcons, who've been playing good football, 23-20. And the Saints and the Giants had a shootout, 52-49 in favor of the Saints. Drew Brees tying the record for 7 touchdowns in an NFL game. For the wild card spots, Atlanta is 6-2. The Vikings are 5-2. They're in the top 2 seeds right now. The Saints and the Seahawks are both at 4-4. And then Washington and Philadelphia are at 3-4 in a weak division. So, out of those teams, where do you see these teams going? Who do you think is going to make the playoffs?
I think NFC, we have, I think it's going to be the Seahawks. I mean, they still are the Seahawks, for lack of better analysis right there. The defense isn't obviously as solid as you'd hope. Same with the offense. They're not really just doing all that much there. But it's still a Pete Carroll-led team. The offense is still exciting at times to watch. You still have Marshawn Lynch in the backfield. Obviously they have now the addition of Jimmy Graham for this season at tight end. So they will start clicking and doing what they're capable of doing. The other team that I think will make it will be the Vikings, with Adrian Peterson obviously being back this year. And Teddy Bridgewater, it is overlooked that last year he had a really, I think it was 65% completion. He wants to aim for 70%. He's someone who he's confident, he's driven, he's a good young quarterback that I feel can help anchor this team for years to come. And the Vikings are up and coming, and they're definitely that team to watch for the wild card.
And Vince, your thoughts?
I would agree. The Vikings, especially because they're in a relatively weak division. But I would say it will be interesting to watch the Vikings going forward, because they've already played the Lions twice, beat the Lions twice, and they just beat the Bears this past week. So that's 3 of their 5 wins that you mentioned have been against 2 of probably the worst teams in the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see how they go and how they fare against some of the better teams going forward. And I think Seattle's playing really great football right now, and I don't think they're going to be contending for a wild card spot. I think they're going to supplant the Cardinals, and the Cardinals will drop into the wild card spot. And we might see the Cardinals playing a wild card round again. They kind of go as Carson Palmer goes. He's had a phenomenal start to the season. He looked iffy in the first half against the Browns, coming off kind of a poor game against the Steelers, but he is old, and they've got a great receiving core: Larry Fitzgerald, John Brown, Michael Ford. After his finger injury, he had a big game against the Browns. They've got a good running attack, so I could see the Cardinals taking the 5 spot, and the Vikings, with a weak division and maybe some wins just by virtue of that, taking the 6th spot.
Good points. In Seattle, obviously a very experienced team, especially with their defense. Washington, Philadelphia, Dallas, all these teams, very up for grabs division. None of these teams are going to win the wild card, but almost every team in that division could come out with the playoff spot with the NFC East. So out of the teams that are remaining that are undefeated, if Carolina were to win tonight against the Colts, out of the undefeated teams, which team do you see strongest after Week 8?
Well, I think it's got to be the Patriots. They absolutely stomped the Dolphins, who had been playing really well the past 2 weeks prior under their interim coach, had been putting up big offensive numbers, and Ryan Tannehill and that offense just looked awful. Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and the company, they're just steamrolling right now, and until anybody can really play competitive 2-3, unless anyone can take them competitively into the 4th quarter, I think they're the team to beat. They're the defending champs, and they're playing like it right now.
And Deepak?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I don't want to say it, I have to agree with Vince here with the Patriots. I mean, Tom Brady has been on what's been a vengeance campaign, a vengeful campaign. He's only thrown 1 pick so far. He's doing stuff that no one's really expecting him to do at his age. And with Gronkowski there, obviously he spreads it out well. I mean, Brady does as a quarterback, with really make sure all his receivers, his tight ends, and his running backs get touches and get into the end zone. So I think that with overall a solid team right there, they still have the best chance.
And I'm going to go with the Patriots as well. The Broncos and the Patriots play Week 12, which is going to be a very, very big game. And it's going to be a great game to watch. One of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the NFL, against most likely the best offense in the NFL. All right, guys. Well, that's it for NFL Week 8. We'll catch up with you with more Sports Zone later.
Hello and welcome back to our final segment of Sports Zone, our favorite, thumbs up, thumbs down, where we go around talking about the good and the bad and the ugly in sports and life today. Without further ado, let's throw it on over to Dan Lignato.
All right, so I will start my thumbs. I'm going to start with a thumbs middle, which we don't do often. But with the World Series ending, Twitter was interesting in the immediate aftermath of the game. So I'm giving thumbs middle because I've seen two different reactions from Mets fans in particular. So it would be a thumbs down for those of you who are screaming and yelling about, like, for example, how is Lucas Duda still on the team if he can't throw 90 feet to home plate? Because that's unnecessary to play the blame game on anyone. The Royals are a good team, and they were the better team. Thumbs up, acknowledge and be proud of the season that they put in. They weren't predicted by anyone to be there. So, respect that and be proud of that. Also, thumbs up to the Mets themselves for coming out after the game and thanking the fans for the season. It's a classy move. That said, I'm not going down without a final swing. Thumbs down to Mike Moustakas. Because Mike Moustakas decided to cop an attitude during Game 3. So Noah Syndergaard, first pitch of the game in Game 3, throws a little high cheese into Alcides Escobar. If you remember, Escobar took the first pitch of the game in Game 1 for an inside-the-park home run. And Syndergaard basically just said, I know he likes to swing at the first pitch. I have some moves that I'm thinking about, a way to not have him hit the first pitch of the game. So he comes up and in. Moustakas decides to chirp back with words I'm not allowed to say on TV. And basically, after the game, the Royals were like, oh, we're pissed about it. But thumbs down because, in Game 2, Johnny Cueto threw at Daniel Murphy's head, and the Mets didn't say anything about it. And then a following thumbs up to Syndergaard for one of the best responses I've ever heard, who after Game 3, when they said, oh, the Royals were upset about it, like, you have a comment, he basically just said, you know what, if they're upset, come meet me 60 feet, 6 inches away, and we'll handle it that way. That, for those of you who don't know, 60 feet, 6 inches distance between the home plate and the mound. And Noah Syndergaard is 23 years old, from Texas, and measures in at 6'6", 240. So there aren't that many people who are going to charge the mound against him. So that's that. Additional, I'll give a thumbs up, actually, though it hurts. Derek Carr of the Oakland Raiders played a really, really nice game against my Jets this weekend. I believe 4 touchdowns. Impressive against that Jets defense, and the Raiders look pretty legit, so I'll give a thumbs up there. Another thumbs up to Drew Brees. We touched on it earlier in the show, tying the NFL record for touchdown passes in a game with 7. Bonus thumb up for Eli Manning, though thumbs down to the defenses of that game because that's atrocious.
All right, Cody.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with the thumbs down because, in general, I like to hear bad news first. So, thumbs down to what I have no idea what Dan just said. I don't know anything about sports, so let me just start off with that. Also, thumbs down to New York. Not our greatest weekend, guys. I'm very ashamed to call myself a New Yorker, so I'm going to go hide in Jersey for a while. Thumbs up for these fellows right here for inviting me on the show today. Thanks, guys. And thumbs up for November. Yeah. We're still here, and we got almost around 1 month until school ends. So that's all the stuff that I know.
All
Deepak?
right, sounds good. Starting off, thumbs up to what was, I think, a really great World Series overall. Thumbs up, obviously, to the Royals for winning. The Mets, they did play really well this entire season. I can't deny that, and they are an exciting team to watch. Thumbs up goes to the Eagles. They did not win, but they did not lose. They had a bye, and so they will go 12-4, Super Bowl bound.
I don't think you can do that if they had a bye.
I can do
it.
That.
Doesn't. They didn't do anything.
Thumbs up also goes to the fact that I called the fact that the World Series would end in 5 games with the Royals winning. Everyone doubted me. Look at me now. Thumbs up to a fairly good Halloween weekend. I hope everyone had a fun time.
We had a blast.
Of course. I kept trying to think. I can't think of any thumbs downs right now. Thumb downs, whatever they are.
Thumbs down the
it'll
cold
come
weather?
to me eventually. Maybe they'll be in the credits. Who knows? Anyway, that's all the time that we do have for Sports Zone today. So big thanks to Dan Legnato, Cody Cohen, Vincent Salandro, Ryan Siegel, Rachel Hotmeyer, Hannah Wolfart, Aviva Chidel, Justin White. Am I forgetting anyone back there? Kelsey Hasmonic, she helped us set up. Oh, thumbs up to the fact that we got all our shows set up fairly easily today for the first time.
Yeah!
So we're finally doing well there. Anyway, that's all the time we have for Sports Zone. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned next week for another episode.